We have a special guest, Marlene Gadzirayi. She is the newly appointed Zimbabwe Olympic Committee Chief Executive Officer, also the Secretary General. Marlene, good morning and welcome to Morning Rush.
Good morning. Thank you, Tich.
I'm trying to respect you because, you know...
It's okay. I understand.
We've worked together, so you've been a colleague, but now
you're
a boss lady. How does it feel? Like, I know you started this month, right?
Yes, I started this month.
How has it been like, taking over the reins of such a big organization? And, what do you think are some of the qualities outside of, obviously, maybe your experience working in radio and sports that you think you can bring to this particular portfolio?
So it's been an adjustment for me because I've always really worked as reporting to somebody, and now having people reporting to me, it's a big responsibility. But then I guess like what you're asking, I did work at the Footballers Union of Zimbabwe and worked with Desmond Maringwa and the late Paul Gundani. So I was basically the first secretariat member, and I was really in charge of setting up systems at the organization, from financial policies to admin policies, HR policies, everything that makes up an organization. So in that administrative role, I guess I got to learn a lot in terms of sport and understanding that, because my background is in accounting. I have an accounting degree, but I had to learn a lot, especially on the job, understanding sport, particularly football. And then also besides that, in terms of the job description, when the advert was sent out, a lot about sport admin. So I also did an advanced sport management with the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee under the IOC program. I have an MBA from NAST as well. So I guess in terms of academic qualifications, I did fit the role. But then I think more than that, I have always had a passion for sport. That's why, when we worked together, it was really about understanding sport. And my passion really was around sport administration. So I guess that's part of who I am and really what I bring to ZOC.
I know usually when you start a new job, you're usually in a probationary period. I mean, looking at the mandate that you've been given, I mean, what are some of the immediate tasks that you've been assigned to sort of look at in terms of the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee right now?
So basically, we know what the Olympics are. They come in once every 4 years. But then I think one of my mandates is to actually make everybody understand what it means to be, what Olympics mean, what it means. Do we just wait for 4 years to then start talking about the Olympics? So I think some of my immediate tasks about the visibility of the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee and what does that mean. It's also understanding the journey to the Olympics. So part of it is to actually just showcase what athletes are doing, how we're preparing for the Olympics, what actually happens before the Olympics, and getting to understand what it means for an athlete to actually qualify for the Olympics. I'm
going to put you on the spot, make you look at the camera and maybe speak to Zimbabwe in terms of what are the Olympics and what do they mean to us? Because I think of Christy Coventry with her Olympic gold medals. I think of the different athletes that we've had go to these games. But in terms of maybe us as a country, and I think of the Mighty Warriors as well, 2016 going to the Olympics. But when you're selling this, what are you telling people about what the Olympics mean to us as Zimbabwe?
So I think the Olympics are basically a destination. What the Olympics are for me is really the journey to the Olympics. So if we're talking about Kirsty Coventry, I remember when I was a child, and I think she was on ZBC, and she was 6 years old, and she was asked what her dream was, and she said, I want to go to the Olympics. And she was as young as 6 years old. That's exactly what the Olympics are, journeying towards that qualification. What does it mean for a 10-year-old to actually want to be an excellent athlete? So it's about journeying towards that world stage. It's about understanding what it means to participate with other champions. Because when you qualify for the Olympics, it's something worth celebrating, because you're not invited to the Olympics. You qualify for the Olympics. You have to earn it. So, but then that journey to earning that spot is, for me, is really what is really important about Olympics. It's about, when we talk about Olympics in Zimbabwe, one of our mantras is we personify excellence. So what does it mean for a 10-year-old swimmer? What does it mean for an athlete, someone in triathlon, in rowing? So it means, if you're the best in Zimbabwe, are you able to also be the best in Africa? Are you then able to be part of at the world stage and then ultimately even get a medal? What Kirsty has achieved it's no mean feat. It's nothing that we can look down upon, because very few people actually get to that stage.
As Africa's most successful Olympian. Yes. But you did highlight that it is a journey. Right. Now, as the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, what support are you guys offering to the dreamers, the athletes out there who are thinking about, following in the footsteps of someone like Kirsty Coventry and go all the way and win a gold, or even just like you rightly said, become an Olympian, because that's kind of a big deal.
It is. So I think what Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, when we're talking about the sports or the disciplines in Olympics, there are 40. So from swimming to aquatics. Under aquatics, there's swimming, there's there's swimming, there's rowing, triathlon, boxing, wrestling, all these disciplines, football. They're part of the Olympics. So what we do as the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, we work with those federations to get the athletes and make sure that they're prepared to go to the Olympics. But then now, as the Olympic Committee, it's now what our mandate now is to actually go back and not just wait for a federation to bring athletes to us and say, oh, so this person went to the African Championships or they went to a qualifying race, they've qualified, here you are, here's a name. So what ZOC has now done is to actually go back to bring in support. If we talk about, for example, the rugby qualifiers, the men's sevens, we actually managed to fund that they go for training to the High Performance Center in South Africa. We have some athletes, even the lady cheaters, they are going to Tunisia, but when they went to Zambia, again, we actually funded that so that they could have some training there. We have had to pay some airfares for marathoner like Rutendo Nyaora. She was in Athens, now she's going to Germany. That's for a qualifying race. We've paid for that. So that kind of support, just coming back to say, as an association, what is the assistance that you need so that we can also just, assist these athletes as a whole to get them to the world stage and to qualify for the Olympics.
Let's talk about the Olympic Solidarity Scholarships. I understand we currently have 10 people on, or 10 athletes who are receiving that. Maybe looking at Paris 2024, I think we've got less than a year to get there. How many of those guys on those solidarity scholarships do we think have a shot at actually taking part in Paris next year?
So before we actually get the athletes to get scholarships, we actually then look at the people who have the potential. So all those 10 are actually the ones who have potential to qualify. So we have one who has qualified, Isaac Mpofu, in marathon, but others are still going through the qualifiers. Rutendo Nyaora, she's not on the scholarship, but we've assisted her. She has been on the scholarship before, but she's going to Germany, should be this week, for a qualifying race. We have Andy Keepers in triathlon. So the qualifiers are still going on. So we actually are just still keeping our fingers crossed that at least some of them qualify. We have Donata Katai also in swimming and Nomvula in swimming as well. So all those athletes, they're the ones who have the potential, and we're hoping that as they go to the qualifiers, they do qualify. I
like how you spoke about the support you guys have given the cheaters and the lady cheaters. When it comes to Olympic qualification, I think I can only think of the Golden Girls and the Mighty Warriors as, some of our teams that have actually made it to the Olympics. Is that something that you guys are thinking about as Olympic Committee to say, how can we get not just individuals qualifying like the ones who are on the Solidarity Scholarships, but how can we get more of our teams? You highlighted that there's 40 different codes that can go to the Olympics. What kind of support are you guys, or plans are you planning to put in place to make sure that we have more teams going to the Olympics?
All right. So in terms of the scholarship, those are, yes, they are for individual sports. But then another example is, yes, we're actually supporting the hockey team as well. They're going for qualifiers in South Africa. And to answer your question, the more the numbers, the more the merrier. So it would really just always be better for Zimbabwe to have more athletes at the Olympics. It's always good, when you're looking at the opening ceremony to see, countries that have, big delegations, and Zimbabwe has maybe sometimes less than 10. So having a team qualifying is beyond amazing for Zimbabwe. So we really need to keep pushing on that. So like I've said, we were supporting the sevens, the cheaters, the lady cheaters. The hockey team as well will be going to South Africa for qualifiers. So we're also trying our best to ensure that, teams also get to qualify, because it's really better not just for the Olympic Committee but for the nation as a whole.
Speaking about the nation, you did mention that you guys work with 40 different associations. As the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, and maybe as the Secretary General / CEO going into this new mandate, what role do you think you and the Olympic Committee can play in the wider sporting ecosystem in Zimbabwe?
I think everybody is involved in the ecosystem. So the Olympic Committee is just part of that big network. And if we're going to talk about ministries, from the Ministry of Sport, we also work with the National Association of Primary School Heads, the Secondary School Heads, Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, the people who are doing their education, the Masters in Sports Science, like you mentioned about Clemens Matau. Everybody is involved. We're going to talk, when you talk about an athlete, I think for me it's really circling down to the athletes. Those are the people that we look at. that. So sometimes when we talk about leadership, we're talking about, we're doing this for the next generation. But it's not so much like that in sport. We're doing it for the current generation. So as leaders, we're the adults in these positions, but the people we really need to support are the young people. Because if you look at Olympics and sport, it's really about teenagers most of the time and people in their early 20s. You've got Coco Gauff, she's 19 and she's won all these accolades. But where are our 19-year-old tennis stars in Zimbabwe? So as the people in charge of the sport, we also need to understand what these children, if somebody who's 12 years old who's won a swimming competition, an inter-school swimming competition, what are we doing to ensure that that child realizes the dream of going to the Olympics? So I think everybody is involved, from the nutrition, from the coaches, from the people who are running sport, the administrators. Everybody really is involved. So I think it's a really big ecosystem. We're a sport-loving nation, but we also need to then marry that passion with our performances. So are we sport-loving in terms of just being local, or do we also want to go global? So if we then have that mindset change, that shift, the paradigm shift, so that everybody understands that we have a role to play to make sure that all our athletes are totally catered for and have the resources to make them qualify for especially the world stage, particularly the Olympics.
Absolutely fantastic. Before I let you go, maybe just your final word to an aspiring Olympian. I'm talking about the 6-year-old who's thinking of maybe taking part in the 2034, 2040 games. Your final words, maybe just in a few seconds?
Oh yeah, we've got Los Angeles in 2028. Just don't let your dream die. Make sure that you keep performing at your utmost best, because that's what Olympics are about. It's really about excellence. Keep pushing yourself and just never give up in terms of whatever sport you are involved in, and don't let your dream die.
All right, I think our sport is in good hands. Marlene Gadzirayi, the newly appointed Zimbabwe Olympic Committee CEO, joining us, talking all things Olympics as we build up to the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Hopefully we'll be able to interact with some of the athletes as we head closer and closer to Paris. And I would really love to see a team qualify, and it's encouraging to hear that the 7 sides, both the men and the women, as well as the hockey sides, getting support from the committee. So absolutely fantastic. Marlene, thank you once again.